Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to look at the core rulebook for Symbaroum, a really cool RPG game published by Free League Publishing. We're going to go down to the table here. I'm going to show you what comes in this book, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, so we're going to take a brief look at the Symbaroum core rulebook, and it's really nice. Rulebook here, hardback rulebook with really nice page quality on here, and it's going to be done into several different books, and you're going to have 3 different books in here. You're going to do with book 1 is going to go over the world of Symbaroum, book 2 is going to go over the player guide, and book 3 is going to go over the game master guide. Now the game master guide isn't as complete as this game master guide, but it is definitely sufficient to play a game of Symbaroum. In addition, you're going to have one adventure, which is called the Promised Land, that you can run for your first game of Symbaroum. Now, one thing I really like about Symbaroum is that these adventures, and when you get the books and stuff later on, all build off of one another. These books tell an overarching story, and is really nice as an overall campaign for the whole thing. But also there's a ton of content in here, and definitely enough so you can run your own games easily in the world of Symbaroum. So basically when you get started here, it's going to go over the world of Symbaroum. It's going to start off with just basic information on what an RPG is and how this one works. This is a roll under system, so whenever you have a number, you want to get that number or lower. So I guess it's that number or lower system. But anyway, it's going to give you a general over what Symbaroum is and give you some history on here to start off with. And it's going to go into a little bit of the Promised Land, which is going to be your first introduction to the game here. And basically what it is you're trying to make it to this new land in the first scenario. So you're trying to get into the land where Davokar is. Your homeland is going to be polluted and non-livable anymore, so you're trying to escape to a better life. Is it a better life? Well, you'll find out through multiple different scenarios and stories in the book. So this is the Forest of Davokar. This is basically the main thing in the game. This is going to be where all your riches and adventures are going to be. You can have plenty of adventures in the different outposts and towns around it, or in the border of the Forest of Davokar. The farther you go in, the bigger things that are in there. So you're going to want to be able to be better equipped and have some more spells and stuff and different things throughout the game. It goes over basically all the different spirituality, and here's the factions that you can play in the game that are available. You have the barbarian clans, you have the Church of Prios, you have Magicka, and it goes over that. You go over the Queen's Army in there, and the Iron Pack, and this is Davokar, which is the forest, and this just basically goes over Dark Davokar and the light areas of Davokar, which are going to be Outer Ring on there, and traveling through Davokar. And this will hold one of the bigger little cities there on the border that is going to be an area that you could have pretty much almost all your adventures in this. It's huge, as you can see in there. So there's a lot in Thistlehold, and there's a lot of history behind it, and you can go over in the game. There's going to, let's go a little farther here. You have Yandos, which is going to be another big city that you can have available in the game with a little port town. That's pretty cool. And you can have different levels of intrigue on there. You can have a lot of espionage in this game. It's a large area in there, so you can have a big epic story inside of just the city itself. And then go over more locations in here. There's a lot you can go in. And then it goes into the player's guide. In the player's guide, you're going to have basically a couple classes that you can pick from, or races basically that you can pick from. And it goes over general overview how to set up the character sheet, which is pretty straightforward and easy. And it goes into these archetypes. Now, you don't actually have to use these archetypes. It just gives suggestions to basically how to help make your characters really quickly and easily. And I love the art in this book. It really helps get you into the mood and the setting of the game going through this art. And there's a lot of different archetypes that it shows in here that's really, really helpful. And these are the different attributes you can have, and these are the different races. Like I said, you only have a couple to pick from. I really like the orcs and the goblins. And here's some traits that you can go in and get throughout the game. And then here's your abilities that you can select from. And you can gain different abilities throughout the game. There's a lot of them in here. And there's mystical tradition, so you can go through that. Here's your mystical powers that you can get throughout the game. Now, unlike D&D and some other ones, there's actually no limit to how many times you can cast something. But you can start gaining corruption. And corruption in this game kills. So you're going to want to balance out what you're going to do and how much corruption you have. And there's going to be temporary and permanent corruption. So most of the time when you go through battles, you can drop your temporary corruption at the end. So you can try to balance out what you're going to do with how much corruption you're going to take. But temporary corruption can easily become permanent corruption, so it's just something to keep in mind. And once you reach so much permanent corruption in the game, your character actually is effectively dead. And your GM gets to take control of that character and can do fun things with it. So don't want that to happen. Don't want you to be the reason why your party's killed or another member gets killed in the game. And the other nice thing on here is it has a really nice system on here where you have your lower level and higher level abilities on here, and you just take the quantity of those and you can easily balance the monsters and stuff in the game as a GM with those combined total numbers. So here's more player rules. Basically, this is a nice little section for players to go over real quick before the game starts, or for the GM to explain real quickly. The Game Master Guide basically is just being how to be a good game master and how your different things work in the game. Like the Game Master doesn't roll dice. You're going to have static numbers and stuff for the monsters and stuff. And really, this is more focused on actual storytelling. There's different campaign rules you can go through here and apply. This game is also great for one-offs, so you can definitely do one-offs and not have to worry about that, where you're just going to play a session, everyone's going to have fun, it's going to be over. This one has a little bit of a monster guide to it, which is really nice. Get different monsters, and these are different adversaries that you can use and run into, and their stats. Whoops, flip through a lot of pages there, accident, but there's just you can see it, like just so much in here for the monsters and adversaries. A great art again throughout all of this. And your last section here, which I'm not going to show too much of because people might want to play it, is going to be the Promised Land scenario, which is pretty big, pretty good chunk of the last portion of the book, which is nice to have that little scenario in this built into the core book, so you can basically just get the core book and play the game and not really need anything else until you find out how awesome this game is and want to have more and more content to be able to have more and more game nights of Symbaroum. So let's go ahead back up to the table here and I'll give you my final thoughts on this game. So I really like Symbaroum. Symbaroum is a really wonderful RPG. The writing in this book is amazing. There is now a lot of content for Symbaroum, and they even have like a 5th edition version of this game. So if you don't quite like the roll under system, which I love, you can get the 5th edition supplement for Symbaroum and play it that way too. Either way, the lore and the amount of detail that's in here is wonderful. I love the world that they generated. I love the fact that Devakar gets more dangerous as you go in, so you can basically tailor your adventure on how far you go in. You can maybe let your players push their luck a little bit if you want. I like the way that the system in general is clean, and I like the fact that the GM doesn't roll anything. That's really, really nice. Makes it more streamlined and makes it more geared towards the actual story. So you're telling a story, but your players are more involved in telling their story. and they're more involved in the decisions that they make, and decisions are incredibly meaningful in this game. Whereas as a GM, you should try not to kill your players, but it's something in this game that is wonderful in the fact that your characters aren't superheroes. They can't take on everything. They have to make good decisions. They have to understand that when they do different things, that there's risks involved, and bad things can happen. So I think that element leads to the darker theme of Symbaroum and adds more of a feeling of like good stress, good sort of terror when you get into the situations. If you have something huge like an abomination jump out of the woods, it's a thing. You're not like, I'm going to go over and hit it with my sword. You're going to be, we might run away now. So I really like that this has not the superhero thing. I don't like where, I mean, I do, but I like that I can play a game where I'm like, well, you're not going to be able to run around and blow everything up. You're not going to be able to run around and hit everything with your sword and die. You see a giant group of goblins, you're not going to run in there and start hacking them all up. Or a giant group of wolves. Also, the scenarios are really well written. So the different scenarios they can play in the game. And with all the content that's out for this, you can definitely easily run your own games, no problem. So I really like Symbaroum. And if you're looking for a darker theme game where, like I said, player decisions are very, very important in this game, I highly recommend you take a look at the Symbaroum RPG. Thank you for watching.